Hi, Blair Gilbert here for MrHardware.com in Gilbert's Pro Hardware in St. Clair Shores. Here to do a quick, economical hole repair. I'm in my hardware store. I'm in the back confines of our storage area here. I come down and just like at home, there's a hole in the wall. Who did it? Nobody did it. So we're gonna fix it. With only 15 minutes worth of effort, which was 5 3-minute applications, we took and made a hole in this wall disappear. We've taken and we've used our little hair dryer and we have it just blowing sideways on low. We could dry each coat so that we could do this whole job in 1 hour and a half, 2-hour project. I have got a wall patch that's going to stick to it. What we're going to do here is we're going to make sure that there's no high spots, because a high spot when we put on mud will cause our mud to cause a bump. So there's no high spots. We're going to take a little bit of primer and we're going to prime the area, because once we put primer on, it stabilizes the surface. Say this was a semi-gloss paint. Well, our joint compound isn't going to stick to a semi-gloss surface that well. However, if we put some primer on here, this primer is going to dry flat, ready to accept paint or joint compound or spackling or whatever we choose. Here's the stuff you're going to need. A wide putty knife. This is a lick and stick wall patch. This is Homax. He's not the only guy that makes these. What's cool about this, and you gotta be careful, when you open this, you don't want to bend the metal plate that's in here. This is the secret to this patch, the metal plate. The fiberglass, self-adhesive fiberglass around the perimeter. So when we put the primer and we stick this over the hole and we force our mud to this galvanized metal plate and this fiberglass, it will bridge the hole. It won't be really strong, but it's up here in the middle of a wall. It'll be strong enough. Now, if this was caused by a doorknob, maybe I'd do something different. I'd get a piece of oak and I'd make a medallion so that the doorknob could hit the medallion again, besides getting a doorstop on my door. We're going to throw a little primer on here. This is a very thin alcohol-based primer. This is Bins by Zinsser. It's a white pigmented shellac, and what it does is it dries real fast and has got tons of glue in it. It bonds like crazy. So if this happened to be my basement ceiling, my bathroom up above leaked, and when it leaked, it came through the plaster and it brought plaster dust and lime through it, and it made my surface hard to adhere to. When this shellac dries, all these chips, if this happened to be soft plaster because it had gotten wet, this is going to glue it together and make it hard. So when I come back and put on the joint compound, my joint compound will stick to a solid, stable surface. You can use this as an alcohol base, this is water base, this is Kilz, this is oil base, this is everywhere, and this is Zinsser's cover stain, oil base. I like the oil bases better because they tend to glue stuff together better. Here's the beauty of bin. It's been 20 minutes and this is dry as a bone. I call this lick and stick. So it's just a peel and patch, galvanized plate so it won't rust. Put it over the hole so it covers, although it doesn't have to be perfect because the fiberglass cloth mesh that's on here, when some mud cures, that'll make that. We scoop out some mud, we smear it on the wall, and then we use that smear to work off of. And now the plan here is first I want to drive it into the cloth. I want to fill that mesh up hard. See how it's a little air gap there? I'm just going to keep filling it in till that's not moving. Now the second coat will take care of it. Now here's what I do. I go around the perimeter of the patch with some compound. Might put a little bit more here. So the trick here is that this job is going to take 3 coats. I'm still not happy here. Bear with me. All right. Here's a couple little tiny holes. Fill them all in. Get there. See, that's what happens to the market leaves there. So we go both ways, but there's still going to be a little owie there. If I had a metal cap trowel, I'd just hit it just to make it a dent. I can always fill a dent. I can't get rid of a bump. That's our first coat. We're going to let that harden. Here's step 2. We'll show you what step 3 is. Our compound's dried up. In lieu of sanding, I use my knife. Any little bumps I might have left behind. The trick to doing this job and to keep the cleanup down to a minimum is to never leave any bumps. You take and put a coat of mud on, you draw it off so thin, there's never any bumps. Now, I have things I gotta fill, so now this job is gonna be to blend. I need to go from this surface to this surface in about a 3-inch pattern and kind of feather it in to hide it. So I'm going to fill the middle up a little bit first, like that. Now I'm going to come around the perimeter, and my goal is to run mud around the perimeter to camouflage my plate to the wall. The harder I push, the less fill I get. So the trick here is to float it. Now, you men there that think you're going to do this in one coat, I'm warning you. You're no Michelangelo. You are not going to do this in one coat. You're not going to do it in 2 coats. It's going to take 3 coats. This is only the 2nd coat. You can see it's a little darker, thicker here. It's where it was a little higher, so we're doing some blending. This possibly be a 4-coat job. I'm not going to let it ruin my day. I'm going to try real lightly just to float over the center. There. For step 4, one of our final steps. I know we're stretching this out, but you can see from the wall, with 2 coats, our divots are about filled in, almost perfect. They still shrank a little. It's going to be hard to tell. And the 2nd coat filled in our cloth real well. No sanding required. This is just nice and smooth because I didn't leave any excess compound. Schmuck a little more juice on here, a little joint compound. We're just using multi-purpose joint compound here. I wanted to fill in this cloth. Just a little bit more here and here. If any, I want to show how we don't have to sand. What I'm doing here is I'm going very, very lightly. I'm letting the trowel float so I don't take too much compound off. I'm actually trying to leave enough compound on. We're going to let this dry. You can see the screen bleeding through, but you can't feel it. It's smooth. So here's my last trick. The problem with this patch, and this is a damp sponge. It's not wringing wet, but it's damp. So it's still allowing me to do a little wet sanding and not causing any dust. One of the coolest things about this job. Where there's a little excess actually up here, we did this yesterday, so it's dry. And look how my sponge is sanding off the edges of my compound. So Mom's happy because I didn't make any dust. I'm smooth here. I got texture here. This wall's been painted, I guess 5 times. So there's some texture from the years of paint. So here's what I do. I get some compound on my sponge, not too much, and I bap the area. Okay, a little more compound, so I can take it back off. I get too much on, I can take it off. And I can hit it more than once. So if I get too much texture here, I can flatten it down. I had my patches, my spots. They're all going to be too smooth. When we prime, I want them to go away. I'm roughing up the job. Went through all that work to make it smooth. But what I'm doing is I'm emulating a couple coats of paint. And I'm hiding my edges. Now I go around the perimeter with no compound. We're going to let this dry, throw a coat of primer, and you'll see this is the way to patch a wall. So we got a coat of primer, 3 coats of mud, a little bapping at the end. I took 5 steps. None of them took very long. Last step. We got to prime this. Drywall compound is porous, so if we were to paint this with like self-priming paint, which is kind of a hoax, primers are primer. This particular primer, this Velspar new construction primer, this is one of the best products I've ever used for when I've done drywall repair or drywall in general, brand new drywall in my house. This stuff is awesome. It covers in 1 coat. So here's all of our work done. Now we're going to hide it. So there you have it. Big hole in the wall that nobody did. Patched, filled, strong. This job took us, using that hair dryer, we could have done it all in probably about 3 hours. But our actual working time was only 15 minutes worth of effort. This is a fast, easy, and inexpensive way to repair a hole in a wall.